The date was 19 May 1845. England's Greenhive Harbor was filled with celebration. On that day, the British Royal Navy's two strongest and most modern ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, were ready to begin a journey that would change the map of the world forever. Their mission was to find the Northwest Passage, a sea route through the frozen Arctic that would connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. A route that had been searched for centuries, but every time the ice defeated human courage. But this time, everything was different. These ships were specially built to fight the ice. Thick iron plates were fixed to their walls, steam engines were installed in them, and most importantly, they were loaded with 3 years' worth of food and supplies, enough that even if they were trapped in the ice for 3 years, they could survive. This expedition was led by Sir John Franklin, a 70-year-old experienced naval officer. With him were 128 brave sailors and officers. Everyone carried the dream of making history in their eyes. When the ships left the harbor, the crowd standing on the shore sent them off with applause and cheers. They did not know that this would be the last time they would ever see those 129 men alive. In late July 1845, 2 whaling ships saw Erebus and Terror near Greenland in Baffin Bay. After that, both ships and the 129 men aboard them disappeared forever. 1 year passed, 2 years passed. When no message came from Franklin, worry began to grow in England. But the British government believed that Franklin and his men were still alive. After all, they had food for 3 years. But when the 3rd year also passed, fear began to turn into reality. Now began the greatest search mission in history. For many years, dozens of ships and rescue teams went into the frozen hell of the Arctic to look for Franklin, but they found nothing. No piece of a ship, no sign of any human being. It was as if those 129 men and their 2 great ships had vanished into thin air. The mission that set out to make history became history's greatest mystery. What really happened to those 129 men? If this unsolved puzzle is shaking your mind, then subscribe to the channel. Let us return to that frozen graveyard. Many years passed. The world had almost forgotten Franklin and his men. But in 1854, a Scottish explorer named John Rae met local Inuit people in the Arctic. What they told him shocked the entire world. The Inuit said that many years earlier, they had seen 2 ships trapped in ice near King William Island in the south. They had also seen about 40 white men who were very sick and starving, trying to walk south. Then they said something that no one wanted to believe. They said that when they later found the camps of those men, the scene was horrifying. There were broken pots in which human flesh had been cooked, and they found bodies whose parts had been cut off. Cannibalism. When this news reached England, chaos erupted. British society was not ready to accept that brave sailors of the Royal Navy could turn into beasts. They called the Inuit liars and savages. Franklin's wife, Lady Jane Franklin, and the famous writer Charles Dickens strongly denied these claims. But this was not just a story. It was the first glimpse of a terrible truth. In 1859, another search mission sent by Lady Franklin finally found some clues on King William Island. They discovered 2 bodies and a document buried under a stone. That document opened the first layer of the mystery. It stated that HMS Erebus and HMS Terror had become trapped in the ice in Victoria Strait in September 1846, just 1 year after the journey began. And then it contained another date, like a story written in blood. It said that Sir John Franklin died on 11 June 1847. And in April 1848, about 1.5 years after being trapped in the ice, the remaining 105 men abandoned the ships and tried to walk to a river on the Canadian mainland. It was a suicide mission. The food they were eating was sealed with lead, which slowly poisoned their bodies. Lead poisoning. Their minds stopped working properly, their bodies became weak, and they were driven toward madness. Now imagine, on one side, imprisonment in ice. On the other side, temperatures of 40 degrees below zero. On the third side, poisoned food. And on the fourth side, hunger. When the Inuit stories were combined with the document, a horrifying picture emerged. Those 105 men walked across the frozen desert, and those who survived did what no one can even imagine just to stay alive. In the late 1980s and 1990s, Canadian scientists found many bodies and bones of Franklin's men on King William Island. The bones had marks of knives and saws on them. The bones were broken to remove the marrow inside. The Inuit stories were true. The brave sailors of the Royal Navy had lost to hunger. They had become cannibals. This story is not only about cannibalism, it is also about the human will that fights until the last breath. They would not have abandoned the ships if they had no hope of survival. They would not have walked south if they had no hope of returning home. But the Arctic gave them no chance. For many decades, the mystery remained incomplete. Where were the ships? Then, after more than 100 years, a miracle happened. In 2014, Canadian researchers used sonar devices and discovered HMS Erebus in the depths of the sea. It was almost perfectly preserved, as if it had sunk only yesterday. And 2 years later, in 2016, HMS Terror was also found. With the discovery of these ships, the mystery of the Franklin expedition has almost been solved. Divers are still going inside the ships to search for clues. Perhaps they will find a diary that tells the full story of the last days in that frozen hell. Friends, this was the horrifying and mysterious story of the Franklin expedition. It reminds us how small humans are before nature and what hunger can force a person to do. If this story gave you chills, then be sure to like and share this video, and tell us what you think about this tragedy.